Hello everyone and welcome to our today's webinar. My name is Gleb Kanatop and I work as Business Development Manager in Integros. Before my colleague Victoria, who's our senior consultant, will start, let me please clarify some organizational issues. Please be sure that our webinar will take approximately 20-25 minutes, maybe half an hour at the latest, and during the webinar you'll be able to ask your questions by using the relevant box on the right side, and if any technical problems, please feel free to use the chat box also on the right side. Today we'll talk about the omnichannel campaigns and the way you can manage them effectively, as it's critical for any business entity both to stay in touch with the customers and retain them as well. So, for those who joined us for the very first time, I'd like to say a few words about Integros. We are an advanced SugarCRM partner located in Eastern Europe. We have a great experience in developing various instruments and solutions to boost sugar system efficiency, and we deliver CRM implementation projects of any complexity. So let's start our demo, and I'm pleased to pass the floor over to Victoria. So Victoria, please go ahead.
I'm very excited to share with you today how easily can you build effective omnichannel marketing solution using the visual tool belt of Sugar ecosystem. And first, I'd like to discuss with you the typical challenges that customer-oriented companies face when trying to implement omnichannel market strategy. Because when you go omnichannel, there is a lot to think about. First is that you need to gather data on your prospects and customers in a timely manner, because if someone shows any interest in product, you should act on it right away. So we need to find a way how to update and create target lists on the fly and without spending too much time on it. Then we need to collect and to analyze the behavior data that is needed to make the decision what message will be right for these specific customers. And based on those characteristics that we gather, we'll have a lot of micro segments. Ideally, we'll have segments that will be represented only by one customer. So we'll need to create unique messages to address each one of those segments, and at the same time we can't actually write individual emails, since it will take a lot of our time. So what we need to do is to find a way how we can easily send these hundreds or even thousands of different unique messages. And besides, we also need to think how to send these messages automatically, because we need to deliver the message as fast as possible. After all, usually time is the essence, and these things we need to engage the customer while we still have his attention. And also, another challenge for the customer-oriented companies is that we have to think about providing seamless experience for the customer, which means we'll need to track all of the activities during all the channels when we engage our customers, to adjust our action accordingly in order to give them the best experience. All of these challenges mentioned above point to the need of omnichannel marketing solution. And what I'm going to show today are the best practices we experience when running omnichannel campaigns to save you time when you solve similar tasks. The goal was to build this solution with minimum cost and to make it flexible to adapt to the changes in the market. So now let's move to the demonstration of the solution, which will break these challenges one by one. And let's start with how we create and update target list. So since a specific source represent specific interest shown by the prospect or the customer in the specific channel, we have to rely on this information to create an appropriate message for them. Webinar is the source that we present in our case, but actually it can be any other channel where prospects or customers show interest, like landing pages on the website. So to keep the information about these lead sources, we configure the custom modules where each record represents the specific source, the specific webinar in our case, which defines current interest of the customer and prospects. And the data that we store under this record is what we need from this that source to define the correct message for the customer. And as I said, in order to create and update this list fast when they appear in the source, and in order to avoid the routine tasks of doing this manually, we arrange workflow that process the data. That is not the workflow, that is the other workflow, sorry for that. We arrange the workflow that process the data from the source automatically according to the predefined scenario. And for this purpose, we use advanced workflow that will allow us to define the business processes. And to enhance it with the automation logic, we use Logic Builder. It is another visual designer in Sugar ecosystem that allow us to do such things as to use integrations and to make different logical conclusions without the need to develop or without the need to write the code. And one other thing I'd like to mention is that of course, when you are trying to automate the process, there always will be some part of the solution that where tasks are either impossible to automate and it requires human touch, or the complexity of automating this task is actually not worth the investment in that automation. So we want to keep this task manual. And so for such tasks, we include them as manual tasks in our workflow, and the system orchestrates the process and it understands that when there is a manual task, it waits for the humans to do their job. Now, if you look in the process as a whole, you can see that there are two stages in the process. The data gathering and the behavior analysis. And depending on the source specifics, these two stages can be either consequential or parallel. Today, we are looking at example where these stages are consequential. Since with the webinar, first people register before, and then after the webinar there are no more registration, and all we need to do is analyze data collected during the webinar. But as an example, when stages are in parallel, we can see that we have a source that is a website, and on one hand we still gather the data on new people coming in, but at the same time we may have already collected some behavioral data on the other customers and prospects that came in earlier. And since the idea is to design this process in a way that we can start engaging the lead as fast as possible while we still have attention, we need to develop, in this case, these stages parallel. So when we still gathering data on one part of our prospects, we already collect the behavior data on other prospects, and when we have enough data to make the decision which message we want to send them, we should do it. So we catch them when we want them. So let's move on to the automation of this lead engagement. If we go back to our webinar and scroll down, we can see that here we have all the leads that we get from that webinar. And if we go into the specific lead, you can see that this lead already has been processed. We can see here all the behavior data which we collected from that source. We put it into the custom fields for which we created the panel just for convenience. And the next step is to define the message that we want to send. And as I mentioned before, the challenge is how to configure the templates for those micro segments, because we don't want to do it manually. We want to automate it. And most customer-oriented companies will have hundreds, if not even thousands, of micro segments. So how do we arrange that in a way that on one hand, it will be easy for the users to maintain the template. I mean, no one wants to add thousands of templates to the system. And on the other hand, we also need to simplify the logic, because it will be a tremendous amount of work to define thousands of cases when to use each of those templates. So the idea that we propose is to break the template into parts of, and then to combine the message by defining the separate parts of that message which can be based on specific parameters. Like in this demo, we have two characteristics that define the base of templates. It is extent of attendance in the webinar and the account type. And based on those characteristics, we'll have few base templates. As for the other parameters, you can see they are embedded into the templates, which is we will dynamically add different text to the inside the template depending on the values of those parameters. So if you look here, and the thing is that with each additional parameters, the number of the final text variant of the final text that we'll get was multiplied. So what we have in here in the example is roughly 200 of the templates. And if we go back to the system, we can see that it is easy to maintain even when we have 200 of templates, because what we have is the system is just these 9 templates for the main message. You can see the template itself here, and we also have for our 3 parameters just 8 more inserts. So what if, say, we have more behavioral data and we want to add another parameters to make this message better, and let's say that parameters have 5 more values. Now we don't need to extend from 200 of templates to 1,000 of templates, which will have with this kind of variety. But all we need to do is add 5 additional inserts depending on those specific characteristics that we want to insert in our message. And then the system will define how to input that into the templates. It's very easy to maintain. And if we go back to the lead, you can see that here in the right on the timeline, the system already processed the lead and it sent this unique message specific to this lead behavior during the webinar. Since the engagement for each specific lead will differ depending on various factors. For the engagement process, we use the separate workflows. You saw the glances of it at the beginning. And this workflow has its own predefined scenarios. And we do not continue to process leads as a group in context of the source because what we need is for each lead separately, we need the specific to follow the specific pace in which we need to engage that lead. So here we define that scenario. As you can see, it also includes automation, part of which is checking whether the lead is ready for the engagement. For example, maybe we want to find some additional information about it or enrich the data, and system can help us, for example, create tasks for the marketing team to say that we don't have full information on that lead, and first we need to enrich the data on the lead, and only after we can send the message to that lead. Or if we already have everything we need, we send the message right away, because the quicker the better. We still have that lead retention. And then to provide the seamless experience to the customers, we need to think that before each next step in our communication with the customer, we need to account for the customer activities that happened during this wait time, like 7 days in this case, when we wait until we contact our customer again. We need to check whether something happened in that time. Maybe the customer already purchased the product, maybe he requested the demo, or maybe there was no reaction to our message at all. So we ask the logic builder to make this logical conclusion for us, whether or not there were activities, what were they, and based on the response, we have different paths that we can follow after. So this covers all the challenges pointed out at the beginning, and but when you have a lot of routine tasks that you need to automate, the automation itself can become a challenge, since to get it all at once, you'll need sufficient investment, and you'll get the return on it only when the full solution is implemented. Wouldn't it be great to automate first just that one task that in the process that it's most of the time more than anything else, but actually it is relatively easy to automate, and we can leave all the rest as manual tasks for now. And later, when we are ready to make another investment to expand on our automation, we can automate another part of the process, and so on. And in the meantime, we'll be getting the benefits from having the most time-consuming task already automated. And that is exactly what proposed solution allows you to do. So anywhere in the process where you're not ready to automate some tasks, like we don't have the second step configured how we will continue the dialogue with the lead, so we just put this manual task here, and we can revisit that part of the process when we are ready. And it can be whether we will replace it by automation completely, or maybe we automate just the part of it and leave another human task, just the smaller one. So this approach provides the possibility to decide if and where you need to extend your automation in the process, whenever you're ready. So, and as I said at the beginning, part of the goal was to make the solution flexible to the changes, because the market is always changing, and to keep our solution effective, we also will have to adapt it. Like, for example, let's say that the condition changed and it's not enough for us to wait the whole week before we contact the customer second time. We need to do it faster. So all we need to do to adjust our solution is just to change the settings on the wait event before we check the activities and proceed with our second step. Well, I think that is all the solution I wanted to show. And so now let's talk about summarizing what you'll get with this solution. So you save time on your on the routine tasks that you have automated. As you see, with visual designers, the configuration is easy as pie, and a visual solution will solve for you as requirements as well. And you won't need the huge and difficult to read long lists of text requirements. Plus, the iterative automation will allow you to get results faster and to automate part of the solution in the pace that you want, and the better return on your investment you can get right away. The most time-consuming task you can automate right away, and of course, because it's very easy to adjust, the solution will always be up to date with your marketing needs. So, what do you need for this solution? Of course, it is the platform, Sugar Enterprise in this case, because we use advanced workflow to design processes to follow our predefined scenarios. We'll also need a logic builder to design Sugar logic and configure integration that will enhance the advanced workflow capabilities. And the last but not least, what we need is timeline viewer to gather the key business events across all channels and to keep our customer experience seamless. And here are the prices and values of the platform itself and the components I've mentioned today, and the details on them you can look up by the links. And actually, now I will ready to answer your questions.
Thank you, Victoria, for your demo. Actually, we received a question from Fabrice. I've sent it to you so you can check it, and I'd be happy to hear your comments. Thank you.
How do we manage leads who attend several webinars in the questions? Is the question. Um, mm, for now, we don't have automated this part. So when the lead attends several webinars, we have currently in the process the user tasks. When we have the activities that the lead is already interested in another webinar, we have the user task, and it will show the users that he need to adjust the communication with the customers accordingly to having been involved in few webinars. But of course, this is unique situation, and later stage we will go into think about which parts of it we can automate if it will give us the benefits we want. And thank you, Fabrice, for your question.
Okay, thank you, Victoria. If no more questions, I guess we have no more. So I'd be grateful if you leave your feedback for the demo. And of course, let me thank you for joining us today. You can always rely on our help, and have a good day, and bye bye.